This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good evening, everyone. In compliance with the public meetings law, I wish to state that on July 24, 2020, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township bulletin board, the Upper Township website, and the town hall. Hold on.
You gotta shut it off for me again.
Let's see where I'm at. Tonight's meeting is being audio recorded up until the closed session portion of this meeting and will be available on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct that this announcement be made a part of the minutes of this meeting. I would ask all to rise for the salute to the flag.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Carr,
Here.
Mr. Coggins,
Here.
Mr. Corson,
Present.
Mr. Young,
Here.
Mayor Palumbo.
Here.
All members are present.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from July 13th, both regular and closed session minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Are there any corrections, deletions, omissions that anyone's aware of? Okay, hearing none. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried with all in favor.
All right. So let's see what we have going around the table here. Scott, you have something for us this evening.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and committee members. I'll start off with our county emergency management report on COVID-19. As of today's date, we now have 959 COVID-19 infections in Cape May County with 81 unfortunate deaths. We currently have 22 active cases in Upper Township and 3 fatalities. An interesting observation in this report was between July 2nd, 2020 and July 11th, 2020. We had a significant increase in COVID-19 infections from those who reside out of the county of Cape May. And we have noticed a significant reduction in that between the 12th of July and the present date. So that is good news. Those numbers are at least going down. As usual, a reminder from the CDC and our county health department is to please continue to wear your masks when in public and also indoors, especially when you're around those who you are unfamiliar with, as well as continued washing of hands frequently during the day, use of sanitizing liquids, and of course the social distancing of 6 foot. And that will definitely curtail and reduce the COVID-19 spread here in Upper Township and in Cape May County. I'd like to report on a couple projects from this past week. I want to thank Atlantic City Electric and Anzalone Electric and our own Public Works Department for the installation assistance that we had, not only removing our old generator from Township Hall, that's our emergency backup generator, but the installation of our new generator, and I'm happy to report that that is 100% functional. And there is actually also a digital component to that will alert us anytime that the generator activates during an emergency situation, and also during the weekly test period, so that it sends it to our certain individuals to our smartphone, and it identifies the status of the generator. So that project is, for all intents and purposes, completed. The second project and I will say that the days that it was installed are probably the hottest that we had during the summer. So I give everybody that was working out there a lot of kudos for what they had to endure as far as the weather was concerned. Our digital communication project, which I reported on at our last meeting, that's about 75% complete. We're waiting on wireless to return, hopefully tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, and they will then complete the transfer over from the old analog lines, which are called RTNA, to the new digital system, which we've seen already. There's been a drastic improvement in our digital communication so far, and that's before the cutover. So we're actually hoping for even better communications with our emergency responders, public works, and the other agencies that work within Upper Township. Also brought to my attention in the form of a few complaints was in regard to a building on Route 49, and unfortunately the deplorable condition of this building. It's my understanding that it's a state-owned building, and my request is that we have permission to at least write a letter to the state and request the actual condition of the building and what the status of the building is before we move further and with Dory and the code office, building code office, to inquire further. There's already been some inquiries from his office, but since it's apparently a state-owned building, we wanted to direct it properly and through the committee and have them address the actual status of the building.
I actually asked Scott to bring that up because it's obviously been on the fire company's radar. It's the old foundation of structures building,
Right.
just west of LC Equipment.
The state owns it?
The state owns it, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was litigation.
It was in litigation for a long time. Part of the resolution was the state actually owns it.
But the guy from a local tire company owned that.
Monahan?
Yeah, Monahan.
No, I think that they.
No, that was foundation of structures owned it.
Yeah.
It was
And there was DeSantis from Woodbine and Bill Monahan. Bill Monahan's brother owned Monahan Tire. That being said, it's the roof has collapsed on it. The block walls are precarious, and it's a huge safety issue. So I asked Scott to bring forward so we can get letters wrote, and I'd like to see us copy our state legislators if we can.
I was going to bring that up tonight anyway, so.
Yeah, I went by there the other day and noticed that the roof had collapsed.
Yes,
So some type of action's got to be done on it.
but here we are. I mean, we can't put a lien. Well, we probably could do it.
Do you have any recommendation as to where we should go with this?
Yeah.
That's what.
Go ahead. We're having some technical difficulties up here, but so because it's state owned at this point, we normally under normal circumstances, we would put a lien on the property and then have it torn down if that's the way of taking care of the issue. But if it's state owned, are we, going in a jurisdiction that we don't really have the ability to do it that way?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
All right. Because it's state-owned, I think what Scott's suggesting is appropriate. I'd have to do research as to whether or not we'd still, under the construction code, would have the right to tear it down. We may, but I would think you get more action by having the state and the legislators get involved, because it is a public danger, from what I understand from Scott's report.
Yes.
Maybe a quicker resolution that way. Let's put it that way, if the state takes action. My understanding, Scott, we haven't notified the state yet.
That's correct. Dory and I had conversation regarding it, and this is the appropriate, what we felt it was the most appropriate thing to do is come to the committee.
And Curtis, are you referring to the foundations and structures litigation?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that predates my time, so I'm not really sure what rights or obligations. I am aware that there is a fund to pay real estate taxes. It may involve that property. Paul, do you know if it does?
That
Yeah, there
property
is
now
a
is,
fund set up, and every time the state draws out of that fund, we actually get a notice of that. So, I think that we may even be able to go through a process, and there could be a fund to help recoup the demolition costs.
if the state owns the property and they step up and demo it, and they can get the money out of the fund, we don't have to get involved or do anything.
How do we know that the state owns the property?
Tax records.
It has been confirmed?
As far as I know, Dory has talked to Megan, the state owns the real estate, from what I understand.
Okay. Well, we check that before we send them notice, but once we know that, then we ought to at least informally write them a letter, not a formal notice of demolition or unsafe structure, but there should be a letter written as Scott recommends. And I do think that you should copy the state legislature and the assembly members from our area.
So Scott, I guess before Scott writes that letter, have that letter produced, we should check the tax office, make sure it is state owned.
I'll confirm that tomorrow morning.
Right. Scott?
Just one more thing, Mayor. We had some issues over the past few weeks regarding some of the substantial rain events that we've had. One at Hilltop Drive, we had a sewer or a storm drain collapse, partially because of that amount of rain that we had received. Our Public Works Department took the necessary action and have replaced those sections of pipe needed. We also had some other issues on Red Oak Drive and Laureldale Drive. Red Oak has been corrected. That was a clogged drain. Again, our Public Works Department interceded and spent a good 24 hours correcting that issue. And then the last one, we're investigating it tomorrow, is on Laureldale Drive. I bring these up because of the storms that we've had, and they have caused flooding in these areas. And, I know Craig has been very proactive with many of the storm drain areas and the easements and the swales that we have throughout the township. And they seem to be making headway. Obviously, that's all relative to flooding situations. So I just wanted to bring that to committee's attention. And that is all I have for you this evening.
Great, thanks. Barbara Young.
I just have one item, and I know I keep harping on this and reminding everyone. Just want to remind everyone, if you have not already done so, please go to 2020census.gov and complete your census form. It's very important that we get an accurate count of our population so we can ensure that we get funding for our state, and not only for our state, but for our communities as well. So it's 2020census.gov, or if you're not an online person, you can call in. There is a phone number to call in. That's 844-330-2020. So thank you. That's all I have this evening, sir. Thank you.
All right. Daniel, do you have anything?
Nothing at this time.
All right. Paul?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just wanted to let the committee and everyone know that I did send out notices to all the residents on the upcoming 2020 road paving project, kind of give them an advance notice that the work is coming down their street, especially if anybody's contemplating, switching over to gas or getting public water. This is the time to kind of do it and get it done before we do a final coat of the paving. That project should be starting sometime after Labor Day, and it'll probably take 3 or 4 months to complete. I did receive notice from the county engineer regarding Corson Tavern Road. They're almost complete the concrete curb and sidewalk work. They got about another week left and a little bit of drainage work to complete. And then afterwards, so probably 2 weeks from now, they're going to start milling and paving operations. And the county engineers just wanted to confirm with the township that we would be okay to have the least amount of impact on the public traveling back and forth, especially because of the number of campgrounds and activity that has in the seasonal time, to be able to do some night milling and paving operations to limit the impact on traffic during the day. So he just wanted to confirm that the committee would be okay with that.
Paul, any news on Newbridge?
That's still the same status. They're still waiting to hear from a couple last property owners. I was going to reach out to Bob and get like a list of who those property owners were, so that maybe if we happen to know some of them, we can maybe do a personal reach out to them to kind of move that project along.
Yeah, let's see if you get a list so we can, maybe we could go out, just bang on some doors and see where these people stand, because constantly getting inquiries about when that strip roadway is going to be done. I mean, we're going to have the entire Course Tavern Road done, and now Newbridge is going to be Burma Road again. So let's see what we can do about that.
I'll follow up on that for sure.
So your ask is they want to do work in the evening hours?
Correct.
Dan, obviously I have property in front of that road. Do I have an opinion, or am I allowed to have an opinion?
It's such a large project. I don't think you have a conflict unless what you're asking about directly impacts your property in terms of benefit, and only possibly your property.
My question is, Paul, if they have nighttime paving, are they going to have state police out there?
I'm not sure who would control that operation. I know it's been a mix right now between, occasionally they've had some state police traffic directors, but they've also had their private, traffic directors working that.
Well, my concern with the nature of the street and the amount of campgrounds, I feel they need to have some sort of protection other than the guy standing there in a vest holding a stop sign. It probably wouldn't hurt to have state police on it. That would be my only concern.
I can forward that suggestion along to the county for sure.
The people who have done all the concrete work, I think they've been very nice, professional, and they keep traffic's been moving pretty good there. I see it a couple times a day, so I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I know projects like this, Paul, they have a safety plan. So, I mean, I don't know how adequate of a safety plan it would be for nighttime.
The bid specs probably indicate what kind of traffic control they're supposed to supply. The appropriate response would be for Paul probably to talk to the county engineer to find out what's in there and what can be done to address the concerns of especially the commercial uses along that road.
Yeah, especially since it's in the evening, and although there's probably repeats with respect to those that are camping or seasonal rentals, there's also going to be transient people. So, it's a dark road to begin with. So we want to make sure that people safely go back and forth along that while construction's taking place.
And then I would, if they're going to do nighttime paving, obviously I would hope they wouldn't do Friday night. I hope they would only do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because of the nature of the campgrounds and the transient traffic. Sunday nights are busy, and so are Friday evenings. But that's just my opinion for what it's worth.
No, I think it's important that you check, because, not having, see what's, I mean, I realize that there's a lot of folks, utilizing that road. But, with the campgrounds and stuff, I think it's important for the input, generally speaking, for all the campgrounds, not
I
necessarily.
mean, there's only four campgrounds in the paving project, and traditionally they work out of town. And then on Friday evenings, they come for the weekend. So Sunday evenings, they go home. So, I mean, in my opinion, if you leave Philadelphia at 7, 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock on a Friday evening, and you come down here at 8:30, 9 o'clock, it's when it's pretty busy.
Those putting that restriction on them, that's a pretty normal a restriction, especially in a, summer tourist area, to have that type of a limitation on work hours and schedules. So I don't think it should be a problem.
I wish we had a little bit more time to poll the people that live there, but it's only going to be one night in front of their house probably, and then moves on.
They'll have variable message board signs up so that, the weeks running up to it, that they'll be able to notify them that this is coming.
All right, is there anything else?
No, that's all I had this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, Barbara Ludi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple things this evening. The first is about our Municipal Alliance grant. As you are all aware, we have a Municipal Alliance grant. Because of the COVID pandemic and funding and whatnot, they froze the funding in March, and the only funding that was allowed was for the coordinator stipend. Because of budget issues and all, the state has extended the grant for this year for a 5th quarter. It will run July 1st until September 30th. So the county is asking that a subcontract amendment be signed. Generally, the mayor signs the contract. So if you are all in agreement with it, if a motion could be made for the mayor to sign this contract amendment, it allows $890 in the state funds, municipal cash match of $222.50, and then an in-kind contribution of $667.
Just to add and reiterate that amendment is solely to pay the staff for the Municipal Alliance contract, not to do any other items, because that's what, frankly, the freezing occurred. That's what occurred. Correct, Barbara?
That's correct.
I'd like to make a motion to direct the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
Call the roll.
Barr? Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yeah.
Motion is carried. Thank you. And then just one other request. We have government finance officers conferences coming up for the fall towards the end of September. It's going to be September 22nd to 24th. They have a portion of the conference that will be live in person, or you can opt to have a remote session. I'm requesting permission to attend remotely to the conference. It will be held in Atlantic City, but I just feel more comfortable if I would attend remotely, and they are giving us that option. There's an early bird registration. It's $350 for the 3 days, and requesting permission to attend that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you. That's all I had this evening.
Okay. Committeeman, I guess we're going this way, right? Committeeman Coggins.
Nothing this evening.
All right, Committeeman Young.
Yeah, we've got a few things. I want to get the committee's feelings on the Fall Fest for September 9th. Are we going to move forward on that? It's coming up pretty close, so we got to start finalizing everything.
Well, our biggest concern, my biggest concern at this point is we haven't gotten permission to go anything over 500. There's not been an extension on that. We're very limited on what we can do, and obviously with the conditions the way they are, we certainly don't want to be, stretching the limits in any way, because it's been very difficult to have the social distancing and the proper, wearing a mask and those things. having said that, I think what we need to do is put some date together when we really have to, say it's yay or nay. And maybe by then things will have, loosened up. But, we're kind of in the same situation we were back in early June about the fireworks, where we had no way of actually approving something because we know there's going to be more than 500 people there. And right now we're restricted to 500 people. And so it concerns me to give approval until we get to that point. That, you understand, listen, no one would like to have it more than I would. I think that, it'd be nice to have something for the children and something that, for everybody to look forward to. But until we get some indication if there's going to be some relief for that number, I'm kind of leery to go forward until we, see where we are. I don't know. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know anybody else.
I think once, follow the lead of the schools too. I mean, once the schools start, opening up and kids start going back and we see how everything starts working with the kids, that would be a pretty good test to see.
Yeah, I mean, we're going September, we're tentative for September 9th. My thing is, trying to get vendors there. And then at least a 4-week leeway or we're going to lose them.
Yeah, I know
that's the
that, but we
problem.
also have to make sure that with the vendors, like anything else, we got to figure out. So I'm sure you're putting a plan together, but the social distancing for lines and trying to, access those vendors and those kind of things are really important in this role. The last thing I want to watch on, the local TV that, 300 people get, COVID because the town decides to have a celebration and nothing was being followed, so listen, I am willing to do whatever we can. I just think that we're kind of in the same situation we were in early June where we have restrictions in place. And until we get relief from that, it's going to be hard to go forward with this.
I think probably by our next meeting, we should be able to make a decision. I mean, I see stuff states are getting shut down right and left. There was just, I watched the news before I came up, there was something that happened in Delaware. 4 or 5 people in the church, they had a church service and 4 or 5 people tested positive.
The Miami Marlins, 12 of the players tested positive, after they played the game. So, I mean, it's just a virus that's just really unpredictable. And so can we, I guess my question is to you, based on what Curtis just said, will that still give you enough time to plan if we say yay or nay?
I've got to find out
At
what
the
our
next
time
meeting.
frame is with the fireworks company. Before they wanted 2 weeks, or we were going to pay for them regardless. So it's all going to hinge
Okay.
between the firework company and the and vendors.
Well, if we have to make a decision tonight, I don't think everybody's.
No, I mean, again,
So the next,
I know we get a large amount
what's
of
the date
people
of the
there.
next meeting?
If you've been here, I mean,
If I may suggest,
social
perhaps the
distance.
council committee can delegate the right to cancel and or negotiate with a vendor or fireworks company to two committee people so that those two can make a decision, similar to what we did when we had to shut down the parks on an emergent basis early on.
So,
I think we need to make our decision one way or the other by the next meeting.
okay.
If not, it's not, and it takes too long to put this together.
And I understand. I mean, really, I understand it. That the problem is, it's, again, just very difficult to make an answer when right now we just don't know, what we're going to be able to
There's
do.
one event after another being canceled up and down the East Coast.
Well, listen, Pennsylvania pretty much covered, Philadelphia canceled their events until 2021.
Yeah, I just got the notice that while the car show was canceled.
Yeah, the motorcycle rally, yes.
So, I mean, we're always going to err on the side
The race of gentlemen
of
was
being
canceled?
very conservative here.
The race of gentlemen was canceled?
Which, to me, again, it's on the beach.
But we don't want to be, and then again, we don't want to be the only game in town. Because now we're going to, if we have a car show and every other thing's canceled.
No, that's not- Our ship's scheduled for October 24th, tentative. So,
All right, so you're comfortable if we make a decision, whether it's yay or nay, by the next meeting, that still gives you enough time?
it has to be made at that point.
Okay.
After that, we
I
can't.
mean,
we
I
can't-
will tell you, if you ask me right now, I'd have to say no.
Yeah, that's why I'm throwing that there.
Okay.
The other thing, again, which we were talking about earlier, was football. They're scheduled to start no contact and in pods, just like the high school's doing, where there's no more than 10 kids in a group, and you must wear face masks all the time. No contact or anything. They require 2 weeks of non-contact, no gear practice by the league requirements, and then minimum of 2 weeks in gear before they are allowed to play a game. For the third, no contact, and then 2 weeks after that, which would be roughly what, 17th, 18th, they would go into gear. And then the first game would be September the 9th. Again, the league has made a decision, and Dan, do we govern by the NJSIA, or are we governed by Governor Murphy's executive order?
Governor Murphy's executive order. If that sports association has something that contradicts the order takes precedence. And I'm not sure your schedule that you just described is consistent with the current regulations from the state, order from the state.
Yeah, I know the last thing I saw was that, he permitted non-contact August 3rd, and I said 2 weeks afterwards.
Right.
Go forward.
And if we don't have
school-
significant change, it's probably going to stay that way, which means that schedule that you just kind of described is not going to be adhered to.
So,
Well, we'll need to assist them, Dan, with that. Besides the football schedule moving forward, my concern is also, fans in the bleachers and fans that line the fence. We all go to the football games, and, people follow the yard markers. When there's a first down, everybody moves to wherever that yard marker's going. And
I
that,
think any fan.
again, is not following where we need to be with social distancing.
I think any
So-
fan should be mandatory to have face mask or mask on.
Well, I mean, listen,
I can,
go ahead.
professional sports, the first thing they do was eliminate all spectators. There's no spectators. Professional sports, though, are all adults. I think to tell a parent they can't come and watch their kid, I mean, that's going to be difficult.
Well, that's a big difference.
If
Yes.
you do that, you'll need either the sheriff's office or state police there. I
So
guarantee.
Well,
Especially with.
we need to drill down on the executive order to see exactly if we're following, because it does spell out the contact sports and what you're allowed to do. Because I recall reading it. In fact, I've talked to Mark Pankos on several occasions about this, who's running the football organization. And, I certainly told him my concerns about fans in the bleachers, and I understand parents want to be there, to watch their children, and more importantly, to make sure in case they're hurt or whatever, they want to be there to make sure they're, properly taken care of, because that could happen.
Financially too. I mean, the bulk of the money they raise is from the fans and the refreshment stand.
Right.
Without it, they're going to be really hurting for referee fees and all the above. But that's pretty much every sport, right on down the line. So, where do we stand with that? Because they're scheduled to start next week.
What, with the football?
Yeah,
It starts next week.
August 3rd.
But it's,
Well, first of all, I understand where Dan's coming from as far as the league's rules and what the governor's directive is.
Mhm.
So there's got to be some understanding by the league as far as what the directive is.
Mhm.
And the rules have got to be, if the rules are within,
Right now,
we're in line with the governor's directive.
right now
And
they
every
are.
town has got to follow the same rules.
Right now they are.
Well, you got to hope that they all follow.
no,
the
well,
same. That's the way it's got to be.
Right now, it's all in line with the governor.
Yeah, I mean, they are
There's
following.
One team that's opted out
Yeah.
to not finish here, and that's Wildwood. And
And Egg
they,
Harbor Township's not having any games till October.
one team, but the other program in Egg Harbor Township is. So again, we're in a, and I mean, I keep telling them we're in a tight spot with this because it's out of our hands.
Well, we're obviously not going to put any children at harm. We all want to see them somehow get back to participating in some sort of sporting events, following the rules, following the guidelines, making sure they're safe. And so, I'll ask, Dan will drill down a little bit on that executive order. I'm pretty sure it is pretty well lined up from what I read between the two comparisons.
Me too.
But, I mean, I actually am more concerned about
Did the
the
governor,
fans.
I was gonna say, did the governor's executive order on having youth sports take in consideration spectators?
Well, that's the big question, I think.
It
And
does.
I would think it comes
What
under
it
the
does is
500.
it defines low risk, medium risk, and high risk, and depending on the contact of the sport.
And it gives anticipated dates.
Be 500 people. That's the maximum for any.
Well, I mean, and I can tell you, every football game, I've never been to a football game, even in the rain, there's always been 500 people there.
The thing we'd have to do, remember you got 4 teams playing and they overlap.
Exactly.
That's what we're allowed to do. So if we're going to do this, I was going to suggest that they can do it, they to stagger their time so that people clear out before the next group comes in. That would help limit some of this. But again, I think we're going to be hard pressed to keep the parents from being there.
What is the consensus of the sports groups? Do they want to do this?
Well, we haven't had a meeting because, right now, I've been talking to Scott, Craig, Rich and I talked about it, Mark and Larry. That's who's been discussing this.
But why don't you, Larry, and Mark get together and come up with a plan on?
Well, they've already got it. They already have it all together, but it's based on the governor's mandate.
Okay.
That's where they are. And that's why I said, if we're going to keep moving forward with it.
I mean, we got to find out what to do with spectators.
I don't think it addressed it all. I mean, a lot of our soccer kids are playing up at Tucker Turf Farm right now. Since we don't have teams, they're all going up there and playing. Baseball, same thing. They're going to other teams and playing until we get started. So it's not like we're stopping anybody from doing anything. I think we're going to have a definitive answer within 2 weeks.
But see, if somebody goes to a private league, that's something else. This is a township sponsored.
Oh, I
league.
understand.
There's a big difference between a private league and us.
I understand. But I'm
Well,
thinking more on.
the other, and I haven't seen the plans, but obviously you have to look at restroom facilities and, because people have to be wearing masks when they're there, they have to be clean, sanitized, so there are things that have to be considered.
Yeah. That's
And,
why.
And I think it's something that we have to work on sooner rather than later, because I'd hate to see the kids start getting involved and then realizing that, okay, we're going to have to pull this.
Yeah, I
Of
mean,
course, that could happen by
especially,
governor executive order anyway.
my biggest thing is with the 8th graders. This is a big growth year for them getting ready to go into high school. And for them to lose a year really sets them back going into their freshman year.
Well, all I can say is the playing field's level.
I know.
Everybody loses.
That's right.
I know, but I'm just saying, that's why I want to make sure we keep an open mind on this. So we think by the next meeting, Dan, we should be able to know where we're at.
Yes, if I had known ahead of time, I would have had the more detailed information on the executive orders. I am concerned that to some degree, the timetable put in those orders is prospective. And as you know, as things change or things progress, the governor has changed what he anticipated would be allowed at different times. So, it's going to be hard to plan, even if there is anticipated dates in the future, because it could be impacted by what happens this week in terms of infections and so forth.
I mean, if he changes, it's out of our hands. I just want to make sure that we stay on a positive side up until that point.
Let me look into it, and I would like to talk to you and maybe Scott and Rich to get a game plan, because we do, in addition to just the non-contact, contact dates that are listed in the orders, we have other orders about social distancing and gatherings, and you're going to have to comply with all of those, because this isn't just a sporting event, it's almost a community event. Yeah, I hope he knows this really well. But for those who haven't recently been at a football night, it's a characteristic of parents who just drop off their kids, and it's a carnival type atmosphere. I have concerns about how we'll be able to monitor that, police it, particularly with respect to the social distancing that might be required. And we don't want to.
I think part of that we can do, Dan, again, if I make the suggestion that they have to give a 45-minute or half-hour stagger in between games.
Who's going to monitor one leaves,
and have the league dictate that teams that already played have to vacate the premises.
You can do that, but there needs to.
I think what Dan's trying to say from a fan perspective, there are a lot of kids that socialize. It's part of a Friday evening, Saturday evening kind of event.
That's
so
going to be the compromise.
They're ones that would necessarily leave. It's not like you're paying a ticket to see a movie and the movie ends and you move on. You know, these are just games that continue. So, I mean, that has to be considered. And, you know, quite frankly, it's open at Caldwell. So it's not like there's one gate where we can kind of monitor people going in and out. It's,
my thing, Rich, is put it in place. You know, I mean, at least we have to put that goodwill effort through to make sure that we comply as much as we can. From there, a lot of it's got to go to the parents and the responsibilities.
Yeah, but we're not going to sanction a program where we have any inkling that it's going beyond the capacity.
The one problem is, and I'm not saying that you have one team playing. The next team shows up and does their warm-up drills and all that. So that's.
Which they're separated. They go away to the backfield.
I understand that.
And the parents usually don't show up until game time.
And then
Unless
what
they
do you
have
do
a
with
kid
the
playing on more than
cheerleaders?
one team.
What do you do with the cheerleaders? That's another organization that's present then.
Cheerleaders, they're going to have to comply with everything we do there.
Well, you know.
But remember that the 500 count includes all those kids that are on the fields.
Oh, I know.
That are participating. So if you have
You're
50
looking
cheerleaders and 100 football players, you know, between the different squads.
Two parents for every kid.
Right. You know, I mean, you quickly get to 500.
Oh, I know. So again, you know, we're up in the air. That's within big. Dan, the only other thing I wanted to bring up, we talked about this, was the waiver system that we're going to put together. All of our kids, all of our coaches and volunteers have got to sign the waiver in order to be there during practices or games. The problem comes in talking to some of the people in the league. We're also saying we're going to make it mandatory for every player visiting has to sign. It's going to be an impossibility. It's because you got 4 teams coming in and there's no way to check it to make sure they did. So how do we regulate it?
This is a safety and security issue and an exposure to liability issue, and I'd rather not discuss this in a public setting. It's potential liability, and we need to look at it in conjunction with our risk management consultant. I understand the concern, but that needs to be reviewed, frankly, because what we're concerned about is if someone gets infected at our facility, they didn't sign a waiver, they didn't release liability, and it exposes the township and its taxpayers to an action. And with that said, I think a process and a procedure ought to be developed that is consistent with our the current standards and the recommendations of the risk management consultant. But I really don't think it's an appropriate forum to talk about that because it could lead to potential litigation depending upon what occurs.
Yeah, what was, just so, you know, one that I didn't want to get off of was that we recommend that we make it mandatory that every program has got to sign a master waiver.
I understand what you're saying, Hope, but I don't think it's appropriate that this be discussed in this forum. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
Has anybody talked to our risk management about having football games?
Yes, we have.
Yeah, we've been doing that. So other than that, I'm waiting to hear what's going on with baseball, soccer, and the other programs. I know wrestling's gearing up. That's going to be another one that we're really going to have to look hard at because it's
I have very grave concerns about that one
I would
too.
think wrestling would be the last thing you would get up and going again.
well,
I mean, that's based, you talk about
I
face to
agree.
face and,
Yeah.
I mean, that, I would be very surprised if parents, are willing to move forward with that to begin with, because I know I would certainly be very leery about it.
Again, I know they're already taking their kids outside programs and having them wrestle for outside programs.
And that's an outside,
That tells you, and that's the mentality, Rich,
and that's an
Yeah, but-
outside program that's not exposed to municipality
No,
liability.
but I'm just saying, I'm talking about the mentality.
And there was, and I saw on the news the other night, Fox News, I believe it was, so there was a wrestling camp in Indiana or Illinois, 12 kids, boom.
Mhm.
I mean, why,
Well, again, we're at the mercy of whatever Murphy says to us, so.
Well,
well, common sense has to be
it's-
upheld.
there's no easy or simple solution to this. And it's so fluid and the virus is so unpredictable that right now New Jersey looks relatively safe. We seem relatively safe based on the numbers that are reported in Cape May County. But, look at the South, the states in the South and the West. I mean, there's an explosion going on. Like 2 months ago, Idaho had nothing, and now they're a state that has no control over what's going on.
Well, Florida and California today passed New York is the.
Right.
It's the bars.
So,
Well, we have no bars in our community?
No, it's not the bars, believe me. If you look at the numbers, most of them that had protesters were ones that had the high numbers. So, but they're not, we won't even go there.
all right, well, we're not going to solve this
All
tonight.
right, but that's all I have,
We have the
Rich.
conversation started.
That's all I had.
Deputy Mayor Barr.
The only thing I had to say was Scott passed my best on to the boys over at the Public Works for taking care of Hilltop so quick. Yes.
All right. Committeeman Corson.
At this time, Mr. Mayor, I have nothing. I'm sure I'll have comments later.
Okay, I just have a couple quick things. We had a staff call this past week. With all the supervisors, Scott and I had it with all the supervisors, and really everything's going well to report from each one of the departments. Really nothing of anything to be concerned about. I did make a recommendation that the supervisors talk to their employees and remind them at some point if there's a way of taking a vacation and using some of their time and not put themselves in jeopardy of going to wherever, where it seems like every state pretty much, including Delaware, is that, you have to quarantine. So if it's possible, for them to use some time, even if it's home, that would be great, only because I have some concerns that we get into September, October, November, and everybody has all this time to use, and everybody wants to try and use it up or lose it or whatever the case may be. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that, we'll see if we can kind of balance that a little bit with what's going on. I certainly don't, I can understand why people don't want to take a vacation now because of all the issues, but I just have concerns that we get towards the end of the year, we could find ourselves with a lot of folks that have a lot of vacation time to use. So,
Once hunting season starts along for the vacation season, which is early, fall, and all that starts in September, October.
yeah, so, and then just one other thing, Curtis and I did, we met with the Strathmere Volunteer Fire Company and did a little cruise around Strathmere in a fire truck to show some of their concerns with some of the streets, the street ends, some of the parking issues and those kind of things. And I'm sure that will be a topic that will be ongoing that we need to address. But, it was good to be able to, see firsthand some of the concerns that they had as well from the fire company, especially with the emergency equipment and stuff. All right, that's all I have. Unless anybody else has anything else. Barbara, would you start with the resolutions, please?
Sure. Item number 1, authorizing the Township of Upper to enter into a cooperative pricing agreement with the Camden County Educational Services.
Motion authorized.
Second,
Mr. Barr,
yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo,
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 2, renewing campground licenses.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Have we done a count on all the sites before? we do
I
these?
believe, Paul, have you not done some visual counts on this campsites?
Yes, I did. Myself and Shelley, we inspected all the campsites, and you can see the detail of the report as far as what the counts were, and how everybody was in general compliance with their approvals.
There's a report in the package that outlines each item.
Yep.
And also, Paul did not inspect Whippoorwill due to a conflict. We had other people inspect that.
That's all
Okay.
contained in your packet there.
Any other questions?
Dan, on this number 2, that would be a blanket for all the campgrounds?
All but Whippoorwill and Echo Farms.
Okay, I'm going to have to abstain from that one because one of the ones that would be in that package is related to me.
And I believe Curtis will have to abstain from it as well.
Yes, I will. I will abstain from all the campgrounds.
Okay.
Okay, so would you call the roll, noting that both Mr. Coggins and Mr. Corson will abstain from this vote?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Coggins abstains. Mr. Corson abstains. Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 3 in favor. Item number 3, renewing the campground license for Whippoorwill Campground.
Motion to approve?
Mr., we have to approve this based on we saw the outstanding litigation with them?
It's
Yes.
consistent with it. It reserves our rights under the litigation, and they're not using any of the contested sites.
All right, 'cause I know they just had another issue out there, and that's why I want to make sure.
That this resolution allows us to pursue any other current violations in addition to those that were recognized at the start of the legislation. I'm sorry, litigation.
Okay, I understand.
All right, I'll second it for the vote.
Okay, Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson, you abstain on this one as well?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 4 in favor. Item number 4, we have renewing the campground license for Echo Farms.
This one had violations outstanding. They went to the zoning board. They got a variance and site plan amendment. The resolution acknowledges that and requires compliance with that.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson abstain?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Item number 5, renewing the mobile home park licenses.
Motion to approve?
Second.
And Paul, again, we did a count on all their sites.
Yes, did also an inspection of the mobile home park and verified all their sites.
And
Thank you.
that report is also in your packet there. Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
I will abstain because of the close nature of relationship between campgrounds and mobile home parks.
Okay. Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Item number 6, renewing the mobile home park license for Osprey Cove.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson, you abstain?
Yes.
Mr. Young? Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with with 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Item number 7, authorizing the mayor and township clerk to sign a contract with KD National Force Security and Investigations LLC for professional security services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And this is only for court right now we're using them, right?
At this time.
That's correct.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. 8, authorizing a 1-year extension of the contract with Cape Professional Billing, Cape Medical Billing for emergency medical billing services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Carried. 9, accepting the bid and authorizing the execution of a contract with Arawak Paving Company Incorporated of Hamilton, New Jersey for the project known as the Reconstruction of Commonwealth Avenue Phase 2 in the 2020 Township Paving Program at a cost of $1,833,000.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. 10, authorizing the engineer to prepare specifications and solicit bids for the design and build of 2 post frame buildings that are 30 by 60 feet.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 11, authorizing the engineer to prepare specifications and solicit bids for a vehicle pressure wash system replacement.
Move the resolution. Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 12, authorizing the purchase of certain items and for the chief financial officer to withdraw funds in the amount of $10,892 from the account entitled Recycling Trust Account for such purposes.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 13, adopting the COVID-19 Township Vacation and Travel Policy.
Before you act on this, a little bit of an explanation is warranted. As you know, or probably aware, the governor issued travel advisories where people are requested to quarantine for 2 weeks after they visited certain states. This deals with employees that may have visited those states on vacation and coming back and how to handle that. Essentially, if the policy was recommended by our Labor Council with consultation with our mayor and township administrator and a personnel officer. Employees who made travel arrangements prior to the date that the state appeared on the travel advisory list can keep, and they keep those travel arrangements. They'd be required to use available sick, vacation, and personal days to remain in pay status during their quarantine period, unless they have available sick pay under the federal law. employees who made their travel arrangements after the state appeared on the travel advisory list and keep those arrangements will use their available sick, vacation, or personal days if they're in quarantine, and they will not be eligible for paid leave under the federal law. We thought it best because of the situation to have a policy so that the employees know what the situation is. It's my understanding that a notice is going to employees actually requesting them to use stored up vacation days because they haven't been taking them. Rich or Scott, if you have anything to add, please feel free to do so.
Dan, I just saw a report yesterday. I don't know if it was the CDC or who it was, but they cut it to 10 days, not 14. So
Whatever the quarantine period, it doesn't necessarily say in our policy what the period is. I just think that it had been 14. Whatever the recommended quarantine time is.
I believe the Cape May County prosecutors, or excuse me, Cape May County Health Department is going with the 14 days as well.
So, yeah, it really is a very, again, another difficult, decisions that have to be made. I mean, obviously, if there's an unfortunate situation with a family member in another state, we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis. If, someone dies, a close, relative, a parent or something, we certainly are not going to be unreasonable, but
Right.
we have to have a policy in place because, quite frankly, the way it could work is, someone takes a week vacation and goes to where you have to be quarantined for 14 days, and literally we lose a person for 3 weeks, so, it just, these things, again, some uncomfortable decisions have to be made here, so.
A fine example, my daughter lives in Maryland. Maryland's a quarantine state. If I go visit my daughter in Maryland, I'm supposed to come home and quarantine.
Yeah, so, it's just, it's
Richard,
very unfortunate.
If like anybody's in an administrative position or like works in Township Hall, if they can do the job from home, are they?
Yes, it's in that. That's the policy as well.
It's in the plan. We discussed the policy. It's in the policy that they can, if they're able to work from home, we'll make accommodations. Okay. I think we were very fair on what we came up with as a document, so.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor. Item number 14, under new business. The Greater Tuckahoe Area Merchants Association requests to hold a raffle number 533 at Lavari's at 1291 Route 50 on September 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 15, Harriet Lane Residential Dwellings Proposed Amendment to the Cape May County Water Quality Management Plan for Block 567, Lot 24 in Upper Township.
Paul, do you want to just give us a summary of this a little bit?
Sure. This is a required endorsement from Township Committee that's required for any project that's going to be exceeding the 2,000 gallons of septic flow on an individual lot. This project's already received site plan approval from the board, and you've already endorsed the treatment works approval application process. It's a permit with the DEP that we normally do. This is another permit plan process that the DEP has to approve where the treatment works approval approves, I'll say, the design, the nuts and bolts of the actual facility of how they treat the wastewater. This is the overall planning that the site is capable of handling it, and within our zoning is appropriate to handle a septic flow over 2,000 gallons. And this is the location of the former Coast Guard housing where they're adding It has 9 sites now, and they're adding in another 11 sites, I believe, to the facility, residential units.
Okay, and this also helps to have them meet their affordable housing requirement, right?
The project is for affordable housing and would help comply with the township's affordable housing and fair share plan.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, the lights just went out in here. All right, just a second. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Automatic lighting.
I hope that new generator would have to kick on there.
Can't see what I'm doing here. Okay, Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo. Mayor
I
Palumbo.
guess you called me, yes.
Okay, motion is carried. Item number 16, Stockton University Coastal Research Center, second quarter survey.
Paul, I read the summary. It looks like we're still losing some beach, but I mean, we have buildup in some areas and there's dunes that are, being created off of the dunes, in separate areas. But overall, what's your impression on it?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably pretty typical for, the early, winter into early spring survey. This is where we would typically lose our beach. We did have some, severe weather storms during March, and that affected these numbers. And I agree, the beach berm itself is in really good shape, especially the mid beach. We have a lot of, I'll say, tertiary dunes that are have sand available on the beach itself. And a lot of these losses, when you look at the profiles, are in the tidal zone or right along the near beach, at the tidal zone. So I think that as we get into the summer, when at the end of the summer survey, I think you'll see a lot of this sand come back onto the beach. As long as we don't have any other major coastal storms coming up the shore.
Okay. Let's hope that's the case.
Yes.
A lot of storms are being named already, so.
Yeah, would they say there's 7 already named?
7 already named, and they're now watching another one, that's forming in the Atlantic Basin. So
It's going to head up the East Coast, they're saying.
What is it?
It's going to head to the East Coast, they're saying.
They're not sure, but it's certainly a year that we're going to really have to monitor and watch. That's for sure.
And their parking problem.
Okay.
Item number 17, under unfinished business, Strathmere parking.
Yeah, I know that I've had many discussions with committeemen. I've had many discussions with Dan, with receiving many emails, and we are looking into an effective way of hopefully addressing this, and also not only effectively addressing it, but figuring how best to enforce it. And so I don't really want to get into the details on this part of it right now, because Dan's been doing a lot of research from statutory requirements and different opportunities that may be there for us on how to handle the situation. So that's really as much as I think that I'd like to go forward with at this point, because I don't want to say this is what we're going to do, and then we come back and say, well, because of some, limitations, we weren't able to do that. So suffice to say that we are working on this on a daily basis and trying to come up with an effective plan that I will certainly work with the committee to release, as sooner rather than later, and certainly by, within the next month anyway. So I don't know, Curtis, if you
report, if I could, is that with respect to the handicap parking that was going to be added and removed, Paul is canvassing the people that live on those streets to make sure that we have their input before we move forward on that as well.
Okay. The only thing I do want to add, I did have a conversation with Scott Morgan today, and he was going to reach out to the state police and ask them to be a little more proactive on the weekends. The weekends, obviously Friday, Saturday, and Sunday seem to be the hotbed issues over there. Parking, I'm sure there's people on the meeting here tonight that are going to tell us it's an absolute nightmare. I came out of Strathmere Sunday about 4:30. I think on Commonwealth Avenue, I counted at least, I stopped counting at 40 parking violations. Because I ran out of fingers and toes. I mean, it was just, it was craziness.
I would have stopped at 20 if you ran out of fingers and toes.
I did them twice.
I was like, how are you counting?
But parking is an issue. I saw cars in front of hydrants. I saw cars on intersections. And driving around with Rich, it was we were in a fire truck and there were people doing crazy stuff in front of us. We had to lean out the window and holler at him, Rich. I thought he was going to lose his marbles. I was the calm one.
It is definitely an issue, but it's not unique to Strathmere.
No.
There are, I see all the time, there's complaints in Ocean City, there's complaints in Seattle. The barrier islands are being inundated everywhere throughout the summer this year because some of the discussions we had earlier where people are just not able to go anywhere. And unfortunately, they're taking day trips and it really is adding to it. But we will come up with a solution that should at least help to address this going forward. And it's not something that we can just do and click on the switch because there are ordinance requirements and things that require a steadfast process. But it's something that we need to address and it's something that we need to take care of and come up with solutions into the early fall and not wait until obviously March or whatever of next year to address. So it's a high priority list and it's something that we will address moving forward.
And we need a long-term solution, not slap a Band-Aid on it.
Yes.
And Mayor, I did speak to the lieutenant actually this evening. He and also Sergeant Walters. And they did express their concerns as well, and the fact that they are very receptive to speaking to us regarding anything that we need from the state police at the Woodbine Barracks regarding parking or any other issues in the township. They will address it. So, like I said, they are very receptive to the concerns. I've sent most of those same emails that I sent to you and Committeeman Corson to the lieutenant anytime they come up, and they always have a response as they have tonight. So we will be getting together with them for their comments and suggestions.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, so who wants to talk about multi-jurisdictional program for public information?
I'll take that one, Mayor. Yeah, that's part of our CRS, the Community Rating System program. This is a program that we work with the New Jersey Coastal Coalition to get stakeholders to help broaden our reach for flooding information. Tom Heights, for one, is one of our stakeholders with the Coastal Coalition, where he pays for radio spots to talk about flooding and different things that we need to watch out for. So it gets us a lot of extra points. As this is the third year that we've been participating in that program, and it's been real successful in working for the different 13 communities in Cape May and Atlantic County. The one item that we added this year was flood insurance promotion. If you recall, I think it was probably maybe 4 or 5 months ago that we discussed this during the winter time about having that program and having a outreach meeting. And this was before we were shut down and with our meetings with this COVID-19. But we still want to do some flood insurance outreach. Mainly, A, we want to help educate and get some information out to our residents, but B, also so that we, this is a year that we're certifying or recertifying for our CRS program, and I want to try to get every available point. So I had some discussions with you, Mayor, earlier, and we don't have a final date, but we're hoping to have a date during the week of August 17th to have a virtual meeting. We'll send out letters to all the property owners in the flood hazard area but we're going to have a meeting where we'll invite all the residents to come on, and we'll talk about flood insurance. We'll have several insurance agents that will help, that are helping the Coastal Coalition be able to talk with residents and look at their policies, look at their elevation certificates, and make sure that each resident is getting and making sure in paying their fair share for what they should be paying. And if they maybe are paying a little bit too much, maybe look at the elevation certificate and say, hey, if you did this or that, maybe you could get some savings on your flood insurance. So it's just really a way to do some outreach to our residents to make sure they're getting the best bang for the buck for their flood insurance premiums. We have gotten notice from FEMA that the rates are going to be going up again this year. So it's a good opportune time to kind of do a flood insurance check for your policies to make sure you are getting what you paid for. So we'll be finalizing that date, but it will be the week of August 17th, and we'll send those notices out, and as well as advertising it on the website and other means of publication. And that's kind of the program for public information in a nutshell.
Okay, anybody have any questions of Paul on that?
No.
All right, thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion to pay the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
So there are no reports from the municipal department, so now we'll open it up for public comment. I would ask that you state your name and your address and your reason for addressing the township committee. It's very difficult to acknowledge who wants to speak because most of you don't have your videos on. So I'll ask that we kind of cooperate here, and whoever would like to go first, please do so. And we'll take it from there.
Hey everyone, I'll go first. Blanche Adams, 330 Woodbine Road in Steelmantown, and I'm representing the Upper Township Business Association. And just a real quick report, our businesses are very willingly adhering to the executive orders to keep with the goal of keeping their staff safe, keeping their customers safe, and really it's just good business to keep their business going and just to keep everybody safe. So we have not heard any negative things happening. They're just working hard. We're in the thick of summer right now, so we're working hard. You may have heard that ShopRite had an infection case, a COVID case, and they did what all businesses should do. They came out in front of it. They acknowledged it. They were doing what they need to do to make the public feel safe. So just really a pretty good report from the business community. They're all working hard and just trying to get through this summer. And that's all I have. Just a quick report from the business community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, who would like to go next?
If it's okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Mike Kiefer, 4 Lauderdale Drive, Ocean View. First, Paul Dietrich, I spoke to you this morning. Thank you for getting back to me as soon as you did. The street that we live on hasn't been surfaced in a long time. The curb that we have is actually, and I think, Paul, you said it was 1.5 inches that the curb comes up over the street. All the ones that I viewed, mine is less than, is below the street level. I have a large amount of water that runs about a football field down the street. It floods into a circle area about 8 inches high, and then that continues running down the street on my side because you have it sloped. My driveway is on a decline. That's something that I acknowledge. but the water is running like a waterfall down the entire neighborhood into my driveway, my front yard, to the point that I have about a few inches of water under my house. Had to put in a couple of drains at the end of my driveway. I do know that gentleman came out today. He is coming back tomorrow. Paul, again, you addressed that issue will be looked at tomorrow, the unclogging of the drain. But it seems to be a bigger issue than that. It seems to be the engineering of that street. I tried to make something out of stomped, I'm going to call it street, I forget the name of it, asphalt, to make my driveway higher so the water's not rushing down there. And it's about a good 4 inches lengthwise coming straight down. It took it away. That's how much water is rushing down my driveway. I'm asking if something can be done. I did try to scoop out any of the weeds that were in between the driveway and the street. There's about an inch where the street stops and the curb starts or driveway. When I was scraping it, the street actually comes up. I can continue ripping the street out. I've had it up about 6 inches. I have a picture, not that I'm trying to break it purposely, but there's obviously some issues there. I'm hoping you guys will keep that in mind. I do know that, again, my driveway is on a decline, but because of the way the whole engineering of that road is, the age of the road and the curb not coming up correctly, all are at fault on this amount of water that's rushing down. I'm a teacher, so I'm good at Zoom, and I would show you the videos on Zoom. I don't know how to do that here, and I know we have other people speaking. So if somebody can return that call and see what could be done, if somebody could come out and address that issue, we would be very thankful for it.
Your name again, sir? I didn't get your name.
I apologize. My name is Michael Kiefer.
Mike Kiefer?
Yes.
Paul, we'll have somebody make contact with Mr. Kiefer. And
Yeah, I spoke with Mike this morning, and I know Public Works, I think that was what Scott mentioned during his discussion. Public Works was out there today to take a look at it and, going to be addressing the drain. As far as this curb, a subsequent owner to Mr. Kiefer essentially took out the concrete curb in order to make I'll say a smooth transition from the street to the road into the driveway, and therefore took away the natural lip that the concrete curb provides. So I told Mike that typically that's a homeowner responsibility for the curbs like that, but I did tell him that if there's some potholing out in the street, as he described, that would be something that Public Works could repair, with proper asphalt. But there's really not much that we're going to be able to do to create a lip into his driveway without him repairing and replacing the concrete curb that a previous owner took out.
And Paul, just to comment back on that, everybody in my neighborhood does not. It's that level. I spoke to the previous owner. She said she had nothing to do with it. That's the way it's been, and it's gotten worse. The outside of my street has been repaired. You can see it has been repaired, the asphalt, and it seems like it's doing the same thing again. It's coming apart, the asphalt itself. So, and again, it is what it is, but it's my life at this point. So any help that the township could, look at. I do know, again, the street itself is pretty old. It does have a big decline down to our driveways anyway. It just so happens that mine's on the downhill area and my driveway does slope down. So I'm getting quite a bit of water in my property.
Paul, have you physically looked at it, Paul?
No, I was going to be out there this week. I was waiting to hear back initially from Public Works, but I'll be heading out there this week to look at it during my normal inspections.
Ed, it's Scott. We will be out there tomorrow morning. I did discuss this with our superintendent of Public Works. They did, as Mr. Kiefer had said, they did have somebody out there initially making some initial assessments, but we're going to be back there tomorrow morning to determine exactly if there's something on the Public Works end that we can do to mitigate it. If not, I'll work with Paul. Public Works will work with Paul to see what else we can do to assist Mr. Kiefer.
You would go out there, check and see what you have, and then give me a call. Let me know how you make out. Is that good with you, Mr. Kiefer?
That's fine. I appreciate that very much. So I appreciate everybody working together, and whatever can be done. I understand that there's situations that we may not be able to improve upon, but whatever can be done, I would appreciate it.
No problem. We'll take a look at it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, who else would like to address the township committee?
Ted Kingston,
Hello?
I go.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted a little bit of background information on the Commonwealth Avenue project. This is Ted Kingston, 5 Willard Road, Strathmere. On the Commonwealth Avenue project, just some background. Like, when was that road transferred from the county to the township? And how much of both of these projects cost? And was there grant money involved, or did the county know we were going to have to do all this reconstruction when they gave us the road?
Ted, I don't know how long it's been, but I mean, I've been here 20 years and it's always been a township road. So I don't think it's ever been under county jurisdiction, that section of Commonwealth from, I'll say, where it bends for most, towards Ocean Drive heading north. That northern section of Commonwealth Avenue, I think, has always been township control. We did receive 2 different municipal aid grants to help fund the raising and reconstruction and drainage improvements on that section. And well, actually, we did the first section last year, and then we'll be doing the second section this fall after Labor Day.
Okay, well, I mean, I appreciate that the road's getting fixed up. I just I think if you ask most people in town, and I mean, I have no way of knowing, but I think common knowledge in town seems to be that was always a county road. And I mean, I remember early on repaving projects and all were done by the county, not the township. And I guess I'm just asking, is there paper somewhere that shows that is definitely a township road now, not a county? I mean, if that's still the county road and we're paying for it, it's a lot of money.
It's not a county road, Ted, I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, then can somebody tell us, either you or Dan or whatever, when was it transferred?
I don't think it was ever transferred. I think
you'd have to do it to
county on this road we would have given it to the county, not the other way around.
Yeah, I just remember as a kid the CR signs on there and all heading up the point. Look, I don't know, I could well be wrong. I just is there something that supports, some evidence that supports?
There should be maps filed at the county. It would take some time with the COVID-19 restrictions to find that out, and it may be expensive to try and research it. It could go back 100, 200 years, where when it was first developed. So you'd have to find those maps and find out what was dedicated to whom.
Well, I mean, I guess all I'm saying is, I mean, I think most people in town always thought it was a county road, and we're going to spend another 1.8 million or whatever. I mean, shouldn't we verify that it's actually our road?
It is a township.
It isn't. We're not spending that much money on the road. We like Strathmere, but not that much. So
Yeah,
really.
that's all of our paving projects, not
Well,
just,
but
it
it's
was,
for us to find out that it's our road. It is our road. I know it's our road, but Ted's not gonna be satisfied with that.
no, but
And he wants to know.
can you explain the 1.8 million, what that?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
the
not.
1.8 The 1.8 million covers over 5.8 miles of roadway reconstruction throughout the township. I believe
It's not just Commonwealth. That's all included. Commonwealth is one of the projects, but that is a major paving program for the whole township.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I saw the way that was written. I guess I read it wrong. I thought we were spending that much for half of that project.
No, that's the.
Now that would be a major project for us to undertake. So no.
The Commonwealth Avenue section,
about paving
about
projects for this
350,000, of which we're getting about 150, 170,000 from the state to complete the project. So about half.
Okay. And not to belabor it if it's a whole lot of work, but I mean, it would be curious. I'm going to remain curious to know, like, how do you know whose road it is?
It's filed with maps, Ted, and they're dedicated maps. It happens a number of different ways. When someone creates a subdivision and creates roads, and they file a map with Smith Road becomes dedicated to whatever municipality that is. With counties, it's different. If I had to guess, I would suspect that Landis Avenue, which is the predecessor of Commonwealth, I believe, Paul, isn't that correct? That originally was Landis from the inlet all the way down through Sea Isle, and that it was not a county road, I would guess. And then I think when they probably created Ocean Drive and the bridge system, that's when it became a county road. That's why it stops at the bend. That's my guess, but you can't get an answer for that unless you do a title search. And going back that far could be rather expensive to do a title search of maps.
Yeah, all right. I'll just take one more swing at it. I can't, it's like if, I mean, pick any county road in the township. It's, nobody's got like an easily available document. It's like, here, we own this or you own this. I mean, surely it just seems incredible that it's that complicated to find out who owns the road.
It's not that complicated. You would have to find the maps and or the dedications that created the roads and when the county took jurisdiction of it. The county, to give you an example, the county wanted us to take jurisdiction of a portion, wasn't it, of Stagecoach Road? And we said no, correct? And that would have been a filing of a separate document with the county, just like you deed your house. It's the same kind of thing, but it's usually done by maps and dedication and transfer of jurisdiction.
I mean, and just to continue on Stagecoach Road, the township dedicated that over to the county, I believe, in the late 80s, early 90s. Up until then, it was a township road, and then we deeded it over there to the county, and they took over jurisdiction.
Traditionally,
it happens all at various times.
Just like when you have to find out who owns property, you have to do a title search. That's what you have to do with roads. If you want the actual confirmed ownership, not dedication.
All right, I'll close out with just one last swing at it. Suppose next year the county comes back and says, why did you tear up our roads and do all this stuff to it? Like nobody said you could do that.
it is a township road, it's not a county road, Ted.
There's no dispute. The county agrees it's our section of road.
And traditionally, county roads are connecting roads from one county road to a state road, or it's a connecting road. Traditionally, the county does not have dead-end cul-de-sac roads.
Yeah, I understand that part of it, Curtis, and in that respect, it should be our road. But you know, it kind of at one point was the county road, and I'm just curious, as you know, you would think at some point there would be evidence of when it changed. That's all.
I can tell you, since my tenure on township committee, it's been a county road. We have our engineering department, we have maps to show our township roads, just like the county engineer has maps to show his roads.
Okay.
But it doesn't tell you dates when they were dedicated. It doesn't tell you dates they were.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the township committee?
What?
All right, I'll give you one more chance. If you're talking on mute, maybe, you know, you're trying to get and haven't released your microphone or something, but other than that, you know, I don't know if there's anyone that.
Yes, this is Lisa Carr, 33 East Webster, Strathmere. My apologies for taking the time to click my mic and my screen. I want to thank you for the conversation that continued this evening about the parking situation in Strathmere, but wanted to inquire. I understand why you're not furthering the conversation tonight, but wanted to inquire as to how you'll go about having further discussions with the community or not. I'd like to understand how you envision this being approached from an overarching perspective. I understand you're not wanting to get into all the details till you have all the research done, but is it possible to give us an understanding of how you're going to approach this and how we can be involved or not be involved in the process? Thank you.
Well, to answer your question, I have already made like kind of a quasi commitment to have a meeting in Strathmere. I do not want to have a meeting where social distancing is going to create a problem. There has been a suggestion of potentially having a virtual meeting. I think that would be very difficult to cover the information. And then right now, Lisa, if I can call you Lisa, if you're okay with that, it was very difficult to see who was coming next. Zoom calls, when there's multiple people on, are very difficult if you don't have a moderator. And, you know, I do Zoom calls all day long, not only for the job as serving as mayor, but my as I call it, my real job, you know, doing government affairs. And so I literally do probably, and I'm not exaggerating, 5 Zoom calls, go-to meetings, whatever you want to call them, a day. But in those instances, when there's multiple people, more than say 10 or 15, everyone is muted, and you know there's questions that are asked before, and it's not really an acknowledgement where everybody's going back and forth. So over the weekend, I actually thought of something that may work for everybody. It's something I've never done, but I'd be willing to try and pursue it, and that is potentially having a meeting on the beach. I know that sounds crazy, but if we could, you know, have people outside, socially distanced, we have some sort of portable mic, at least I can acknowledge people who want to speak. What we want to do is have the information. We're looking at some possible answers to parking, and it really is not just making sure that the cars that are parked illegally have tickets. Honestly, there's going to be some give and take with some of the residents where, you know, when there's 2 parking spots that are identified and only 1 car is there in the middle, so that another car, that's something that we're going to address too. We want it to be an overall coverage. And I don't want to get into too much details because we don't have the exact facts. But whatever we do, we want to be able to enforce it, and we want to be able to make sure that it's a fair system. And so if potentially, you know, the end of August, having a meeting on the beach with, I don't care how many, because we're allowed up to 500, but I don't think that many will come. And we're able to have a give and take with some sort of portable audio system, it might work. I don't want to put anybody in a jeopardized situation, and I don't really want to potentially tax the Strathmere Volunteer Fire Company that have let us use their facilities in the past for these meetings. But I think we're talking a much different situation, because if you see what I'm looking at right now in Township Hall, where we have a substantial amount of benches that are usually filled with people, there are tapes and X's and this, and we're the only ones in this room right now. And that's because we can't, it's very difficult to get that 6-foot distancing. So I assure you, we'll have a public meeting somehow. And it might exactly be what I said. It might be on the beach. And if we have to resort to a virtual call, we will, but I'm really gun shy about that. Because I think it'd be very difficult, and it'll be something that would take a long, long time to get through.
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to thank the mayor, and then, of course, having some other conversation. When I listened to you earlier, I thought, oh, in the next meeting or the meeting after, you'll come forth with a proposal. And based on my understanding of the meeting 2 weeks ago, I thought maybe there'd be a meeting in a township meeting with the members of the Strathmere community, maybe in September. And so I thought maybe there was a gap there that I wasn't seeing met. But now, based on what you've said, I think that gap will be met. You'll be looking for input, or if not input, willing to listen to us and all of our concerns. And I respect that. I appreciate your taking the time and working through the issues of COVID.
That is the goal. The goal is to come up with some sort of plan, present it, and get feedback from the residents. And as we stated at the last meeting, we don't want to have you know, a patchwork, a solution to this. We think it's really important to address Strathmere as a whole, and not just Strathmere. We're looking at other areas in the township that we'd like to incorporate this in as well. because we have other areas in Beasley's Point where we're going to have, some major construction done there. I mean, we want to, if we're going to address it, we want to try and do it in a full-fledged, plan. And that's where we'll get the input from everyone.
Rich and I did take a ride, Mrs. Carr, with the fire company this weekend, and it was an eye-opening experience. And we are making a commitment to try to fix this and fix it right, not slap a Band-Aid on it. Not this. There's some problems, and they need to be addressed, and it needs to be done properly.
Well, I want to thank you both for doing that. I respect that. And I guess my only other comment would be, besides taking the time to talk to the community, which you're going to do, is part of the discussion that I heard in the meeting 2 weeks ago, really more associated with widening streets, was looking at an overarching plan. And that may also be what's needed here. And I would just ask that you consider that, and it sounds like you are. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me this evening.
Thank you. There's Mark's got his hand raised. So that I saw.
I'm so well trained raising hands. Well, Mayor and members of the committee, thank you so much for your work. My name is Mark Berger. As you can see, and my address is 2 West Winthrop in Strathmere. And I appreciate all the time you're spending on the parking situation, and Curtis and Mayor for spending time with the fire department riding around Strathmere over the weekend. My view is that the parking problems are a symptom of a larger problem, which is a sense of lawlessness in Strathmere itself, particularly on the weekends. We witness public drinking, drunkenness, trash piling up on the beach, on the entrances to the beach. We see people before they leave Strathmere urinating in our backyard, families who have their kids urinate before they get in the car. And we've listened to conversations of teenagers walking the streets at night from our balcony, from our porch, saying, this town is the greatest, anything goes, there are no police, you can do whatever you want. And I think that one of the issues is exactly that. There's a public perception that this is a lawless town, that there are no police. And it's not just the Strathmere Beach, but it's also the state park, of course, in the state park. So I don't know the solution, but the problem this year is worse than the last 4 summers in terms of the crowds. There's absolutely no social or physical distancing on the beaches. The bad behavior running through the protected bird sanctuary areas, and just people behaving poorly, disrespectfully. I don't know the solution, but I want to make sure that the committee is aware that the problem seems significantly worse this summer than it did prior summers.
Well, and I appreciate, sharing your thoughts. We didn't really want to get involved with too many topics. We are looking at ways to maybe help curtail some of these activities. We have had the state park rangers get involved. That is a real problem for us that unfortunately we don't have jurisdiction over, although we are cleaning up a lot of trash that we probably shouldn't be cleaning up, where people should be cooperative and take their trash with them when they're done or whatever. But so that's an entirely different issue. We are looking at, there's been suggestions on beach permit, there are beach tags. So, I don't want to get into, a total discussion on everything. We do realize there's issues. We weren't helped by the media that decided to say Strathmere was the #2 beach to go to, because there's free beaches, there's no expense for parking, there's free parking, the enforcement is very limited, so we were, and then we're hit with locals, or not locals, but people that are coming down, for a weekend or a day or whatever. I've noticed, I go to the beach at least 3 times a week in Strathmere, and I've been doing that, for the last 30 years. And I've noticed personally that there are unique people that normally you kind of, after so many years, you're always seeing the same people. I need to borrow your charger, I'm dying here. you know, there are things that need to be addressed socially and culturally. So, you know, the plan is not just parking, it's really a lot of things that we're looking at. And if you bear with me for a second, I'll see if I can get me back up here with some charge. There we go. You know, but again, we realize there's a lot of social issues going on as well, and we're hoping that we can come up with some at least relatively good solutions to move us in the right direction.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I have to say something. This is Janice Connell, 1808 Avenue. I'm very delighted to hear about this, you know, overall plan to address, you know, the crowds, the inappropriate behavior, parking, the lack of enforcement, and all of that, you know, has really made such an adverse impact on not only, you know, the residents, but also the residents. And I think, you know, that's an important consideration when people, you know, spend a lot of money to come down here, and then we have all these other issues. And I really am very appreciative of the fact that you understand and are taking action, you know, to provide a holistic plan to address all of those things. I would like to just make one comment about the state police. I called the state police, I think it was the weekend of July 17th, because there were so many cars illegally parked up and down Commonwealth in the pedestrian pathway. And the person I spoke to said that she didn't think the state police ticketed cars illegally parked in Strathmere. And I said, well, of course they do. And I explained about the pedestrian pathway, and she put me through to the desk sergeant, who assured me that the state trooper was out there on Commonwealth ticketing. So my husband went out, and there was a state trooper, and he only ticketed cars that had their tires encroaching on the pedestrian pathway, so that all the vacant lots had just this chaotic parking of cars. And as long as they didn't have the tires on the pedestrian pathway, they weren't being parked. And I still think that, you know, that's a serious issue. They're going to have to back out, try and get out. It's just not a safe situation at all. And I don't think the intent was to permit parking on the pedestrian pathway side, where, you know, on these vacant lots. So I heard earlier there were going to be some discussions with the state police, and they were open to helping us out. So I just wanted to share that information with the team. That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. It appears that we have addressed at least those that wanted to come forward to the Township Committee. Now, before I turn it over to Mr. Coggins to put us into executive session, I know Dan wants to make a statement as to how the go-to meeting will work with respect to us going to executive session and coming back.
Yes. Just so the public knows, when we go into closed session, the meeting that we're in now and go to meeting will stay open, but there'll be a blank screen, and everything will be muted. When we come out of closed session, the screen will go back to being able to visualize the Township Committee, and everything will be unmuted. So if you were interested in the close of the meeting after closed session, you would wait in this go-to-meeting room and until the screen is activated again and is unmuted. And before we do the motion to go into closed session, I know Mr. Coggins will generally read it. Because of Hobie's comments regarding safety, security, and insurance. I would like to ask Mr. Coggins to add that as one of the items to be discussed, safety, security, and insurance, so that that can be addressed in closed session as well.
All right, so did you just a closed session already?
No.
All right,
That's
so.
the notice that's going to show up, so we need
Okay. So Committeeman Coggins, I'll turn to you and ask for you to make a motion to go into executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are contract negotiation for 14 South Bayview license agreement and 37 North Bayview license agreement. Litigation, Holt versus Upper Township. Safety, security, and insurance items, and personnel. I also include in my motion the estimated time and circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is
So for
carried.
those of you who are still on the call, we thank you. We hope you have a great week. And we'll, if you're certainly, if you would like to stay on until we come back in regular session, please feel free to do that.
How the fuck am I supposed to talk?
We're back on?
Yep, I'm on.
Paul, you want to get rid of that message?
Someone's coded.
Goodness.
Sounds like outer limits.
Woo.
It was tonight, wasn't it?
All right, are we back? Are you back yet? No, I'm out of juice.
Oh, okay.
Somebody still has their.
Wow.
My mic, speaker's off and my mic's off.
My speaker's off. Well, my mic's off.
Mine's off. Ed's with me. See him in the background right there? He's back in the day.
This is crazy.
You know, all you need is Rod Sterling to show up and start announcing us.
I feel like I'm on the hunt of Red October.
Yeah. Dive, dive, dive. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, you're
Ready.
Who's bringing the keg next meeting?
Oh, it was that staff.
All right, I'd like to make a motion, to get out of executive session, and move into open session.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? The meeting is adjourned.